Hello everyone. Before starting our today's session, on behalf of All India Lawyers Forum, I would like to express my gratitude towards Honorable Mr. Justice Deepak Misra, former Chief Justice of India, Honorable Mr. Justice B.R. Gavai, Judge Supreme Court of India, Honorable Mr. Justice L. Nageshwar Rao, Judge Supreme Court of India, Honorable Ms. Justice Indra Banerjee, Judge Supreme Court of India, Honorable Justice A.K. Sikri, former Judge Supreme Court of India, Honorable Justice Gyan Sudha Misra, former Judge Supreme Court of India, Honorable Justice Kurian Joseph, former Judge Supreme Court of India, Justice Siddharth Mikul, Judge Honorable High Court of Delhi, and all other eminent chief guests and keynote speakers who have been a precious part of our previous webinars. So now, moving on, a good evening to ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to all in today's online learning session on the topic anti-defection law in India. Dear friends, as we all know that today's topic is very burning topic in Indian politics. Therefore, we must know the sole intention of enactment of anti-defection law in India. In my opinion, the sole primary intention of the law was to curb political corruption, which was seen as a necessary first step to be addressing other form of corruption in the country, to strengthen democracy by bringing stability to politics, to make members of parliament more responsible and loyal to the parties. The Savan Committee suggested that a member who changes party alliance for monetary benefits or other forms of greed, such as a promise of executive office, should not only be removed from parliament but also barred from contesting elections for a specific time. Further, our today's keynote speaker will address you in detail on the today's topic. Now, I will hand over to Mr. Vikas Verma, our co-chairman of All India Platform, and the moderator of today's session. Over to you, Mr. Vikas ji, please.
Thank you so much, Vinod Kumar Goyal, Chairman of Indian Lawyers Forum. So now may I proceed further. So now may I request to Amrinder Kumar Singh, Executive Member, Supreme Court Bar Association, kindly deliver your welcome speech in respect of our guest. Over to Amrinder Singh.
There might be some technical issues.
Today we have with the keynote speaker, Shri Manish Tiwari, veteran lawyer of Supreme Court of India and Honorable Member of Parliament and former Minister of Information and Broadcasting of India. We have another keynote speaker, Dr. Dilip Upe, Vice Chancellor, Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai. And we have with Shri Sanjay Singh, Honorable Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha, and Vinod Kumar Goyal, Chairman, All India Lawyers Forum, and we have with Amrinder Kumar Singh, Advocate, Executive Member, SCPA. So now may I request again Amrinder Kumar Singh, kindly give your welcome speech in respect of our guest. Over to Amrinder Kumar Singh. Okay, I think it is some technical issue. So may I read the welcome address? So first I would like to mention about the mention Manish Tiwari sir. Manish Tiwari sir was born on 8 December 1965 at Ludhiana, Punjab. To V.N. Tiwari, an author of Punjabi language and professor at Punjab University. And Amrit Tiwari was a dentist who worked as a professor and had Oral Health Science Center and Dean at Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research. His father was killed by militants in 1984 at Sector 24 Chandigarh during a morning walk a few months before Operation Blue Star. His mother died in 2018 following a cardiac arrest. Tiwari sir has attained a Bachelor of Arts degree from the Punjab University Chandigarh and later Bachelor of Law from the University of Delhi. He was the Union Minister for Information and Broadcasting. Tiwari sir, an advocate by profession, presently practicing in Supreme Court of India and High Court, Delhi, and as well as the Punjab and Haryana. So now, may I request to Manish Tiwari sir, kindly deliver your speech on the topic of anti-defection law in India. So over to Manish Tiwari sir.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, allow me to thank the All India Lawyers Forum for hosting this extremely topical and very germane discussion on the 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution, which is colloquially known as the anti-defection law. My apologies to the organizers and all those who are watching this show, because I am not as formally dressed as some of my other colleagues are, but I find it a little difficult to actually wear a coat and a tie and sit at home. So be that as it may, I'll try and keep my comments as brief as possible. Let me begin by giving this very, very august and enlightened audience an overview as to how the 10th schedule actually came to be inserted in the Indian Constitution. In the late 60s, especially in the state of Haryana, a very peculiar phenomena took hold of the Indian political firmament. And this was summed up by a phrase which became popular over the years called Ayaram and Giyaram. Now, Ayaram was a member of the Haryana Legislative Assembly and had the dubious distinction of actually crossing the floor, that is, moving from one party to another in 8 times in the span of one day. And so, therefore, nothing really epitomized political immorality as the act of this very, very eminent legislator crossing the floor or changing parties more than 8 times a day, more than 8 times in one day. Subsequently, throughout the decade of the 70s and the early 80s, you saw governments getting destabilized, primarily because people would be elected from one party, and then because of certain inducements or certain promises made or certain allurements, or at times maybe because of genuine differences in terms of policy and platforms, people decided to cross from one party to another. It was in this context, after almost 17 years of hand-wringing, that Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, the youngest Prime Minister that India has ever had, elected by the largest majority which this country has seen ever since democratic elections got instituted in 1952, decided to put an end to this specter of Ayarams and Giyarams. And he introduced as almost his first act, or I think his first act, the 10th schedule into the Constitution, which is colloquially known as the anti-defection law. The purpose of the anti-defection law was extremely laudable. It provided that in case you violated the whip or voluntarily left your political party, you would, on the petition of that political party, be disqualified from the legislature, whether it was a state legislature or it was the Parliament of India. It also provided that in case there was a genuine issue which agitated the majority of the members or a substantial number of members of that particular party, and a legitimate split constituting 1/3 of the members of the legislative party took place, Under those circumstances, that group would then be recognized as a separate entity, and they would not lose their membership. So, therefore, this framework was put in place, but unfortunately, this framework was unsuccessful in really putting an end to the specter of horse trading. So what was seen as a retail activity, soon changed into a wholesale activity, whereby earlier you had individual legislators used to cross over, and now that number went up to one third. When the NDA BJP government was in office, if I recall correctly, I think Mr. Arun Jaitley was the law minister. They decided to raise the wholesale bar from one third to two thirds, essentially implying that a split would only be recognized if two-thirds of the members of that particular political party decided to walk out. And then under those circumstances, they would be recognized as a separate faction or as a separate entity, and their membership of the House would not be at risk. Again, experience has shown that raising the bar from one third to two thirds has also not had a salutary impact. And what used to be a retail activity became a wholesale activity. And then it became almost a supermarket kind of an activity, a Walmart or a mall activity where you had to lure away two-thirds of the members in order to bring about the fall of the government. While many governments have fallen as a result of this bar even being raised, it's quite possible since 1985. Some governments have actually survived this scenario also. But the experience shows that the 10th schedule has been singularly unable to prevent if there is a determination to defect or if there's a determination to split. It has not been successful in really preventing these splits / defection / separate entities from coming into existence. When I came into Parliament for the first time in 2009, I realized that the 10th schedule has had some unintended consequences. It has taken democracy out of our legislative institutions. It has made members, whether on the treasury benches or on the opposition benches, slaves of a whip-driven tyranny. So essentially, if you are on the treasury benches and there is a bill which is up for consideration before the House, you are not entitled to vote according to your constituency, your common sense, or your conscience. You are a whip-driven monkey, whereby a whip is issued either to vote in favor of the bill or to vote against the bill. So if you are in the treasury benches, invariably you are voting in favor of the bill. If you are on the opposition benches, invariably you are voting against the bill. Though the anti-defection law does provide that you can apply for permission to your respective political parties to really get exception from the rigors of the 10th schedule, very rarely is this option exercised, or very rarely is this option even allowed. And somebody who exercises his option does so at the peril of being put in the doghouse by his respective political party and possibly being denied the ticket for the next election. So under those circumstances, I deliberated very deeply, and I moved a private member's bill, which was my first private member's bill, which I moved in the Lok Sabha. And this was in the August of 2010, after being in Parliament for 1 year. That bill sought to amend or lower the rigors of the anti-defection law, and actually limited to those instruments which have the impact of destabilizing an elected government. That is to say that the anti-defection law would only apply to vote of confidence or a vote of no confidence, a motion of adjournment of the business of the House, a motion in respect of financial matters as enumerated in Article 113 to 16, both inclusive, and Articles 202 to 206, both inclusive of the Constitution of India, and money bills. Essentially, because if the government loses a vote on any of these issues or any of these instruments, the government has to resign. The idea was that you free up the rest of the legislative space, whereby lawmakers can actually contribute substantively to lawmaking. Because the 10th schedule, as it stands constituted, does not incentivize any member to do any research in order to make a law better, or study best practices around the world and enrich the law. It even does not put a obligation on, let's say, a minister of the treasury benches to walk the extra mile and try and build a consensus within his own party, because he knows that a whip will be issued and ultimately everybody will have to vote for it, howsoever good or bad the law might be. And in India's case, laws continue on the statute books. They don't have a sunset clause. So you have a contract act which goes back to the last part of the 19th century. You have a Indian Penal Code and various other laws which were all made in the last part of the last quarter of the 19th century and still continue to be on the statute books. Some of them, of course, have been updated over a period of time. Some continue to exist almost in their original form. And that's why you would see that when Parliament moves for the most substantive part of its business, that is legislative business, or what is colloquially called government business, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the House is empty. You have to ring the quorum bell again and again in order to get a minimum quorum to be able to transact the business of the House. Often there is an understanding between the Treasury and the opposition that, don't insist on a quorum, let the House function, even if less than 10% of the members are present. And more often than not, the House actually functions with less than 10% of the members present, because it's a Herculean task for whips both on the Treasury and the opposition side in order to quarrel up their members and to get them in the House, because no member feels that any substantive contribution would be made by him or her by remaining in the House, so except for those members who have been asked by their parties to speak on a particular bill, or one or two who have an interest, or some others who have to do roster duty, because you have roster duty from 2 to 6 in the afternoon. Only those members are really present. Most of them are also disinterested. Some would be working on their iPad, others against the rules of procedure would try and read something, or ministers clear their files. They sign letters while sitting for those 3 hours in the House in order to make productive use of that time. So essentially, what is most germane, or what is the most important part of a legislative job, that is making laws, you would find that there is a complete disinterest in that particular activity. Yes, but if there's a political surcharge debate, or if there is something else happening, then you may find that the House is in complete attendance. Otherwise, it is only during question hour in the morning from 11 to 12, and after that during 0 hour, when you can make noise that people come and register their presence, go back home, have lunch, go and do their work, and just or go to sleep and call it a day. So under those circumstances, you see, the 10th schedule has proven to be absolutely useless in preventing defections, which is the primary purpose for it was instituted. You've seen over a period of the last 6 years how governments in Uttarakhand, in Goa, in Manipur, in Karnataka, and various other places have actually been toppled using the money and muscle power of the dispensation which currently is in power at the center. Not to say that some of that activity never used to take place earlier, but it wasn't as brazen as it is today. And political immorality has almost been mainstreamed by the NDA BJP government. So under those circumstances, I do firmly believe that the time has come to liberalize the legislative space. The time has come to restrict the rigors of the anti-defection law to only those instruments which impact the stability of the government, free up the legislative space, bring about a mandatory provision in the constitution that state legislators should meet for at least 30, at least 100 days in a year, because state legislators, if you go by studies which have been done by PRS or others, do not meet for more than 20 to 30 days in a year. In fact, some sessions in some state assemblies are as short as 3 days or at times 2 days. And so therefore only pro forma sessions are called in order to meet that bar of 6 months should not elapse between one session and the other. And practically you have legislative institutions which are completely stopped functioning and have become dysfunctional. It's another matter that legislators and parliamentarians have themselves contributed to the redundancy and the irrelevance of these institutions by indulging in slogan shouting, disruption, throwing mics and shoes at each other, activity which would put any constitutional institution to shame. But we have been doing it very shamefacedly over the past 3 or 4 decades. And gone are those days of the 50s and the 60s when there used to be substantive and meaningful debates in Parliament, when the Prime Minister of India would actually attend Parliament very seriously. The current Prime Minister actually feels it beneath his dignity to clearly sit in Parliament and accept or mention which is supposed to be the Prime Minister's question due, where also he comes and sits very grudgingly for 1 hour, and then also you have MOSs answering questions. The participation of the Prime Minister in the parliamentary proceedings is really limited to replying to the President's address once a year, and that's about it. So there is a serious crisis in our legislative institutions, and the 10th schedule is actually a substantive part of that crisis. And the time has come to revisit it. I've written very extensively on it. I've written a lead piece in the Hindu newspaper about a couple of years back. I've again used this bill in the current parliament. It was supposed to be tabled in the previous budget session, but unfortunately it got adjourned because of COVID-19. I hope I'm able to do it in the next session, the amendment to the 10th schedule. But till the time we do not reinvent our legislative institutions, the crisis of confidence is now afflicting all constitutional institutions across the board is really undermining Indian democracy. And any democracy is as strong or weak as the institutions that uphold it. And India seriously is in danger of becoming an authoritarian state, given the way our constitutional institutions, one by one, are being hollowed out or have been hollowed out. But since this is something which is restricted, or the subject today was the 10th schedule, let me end by saying the answer lies in political parties selecting better candidates. There are people who have conviction, people who have commitment to public service, and not bring in money bags into the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, people who are able to pay their way through or have made money through dubious means and now look for an insurance policy by becoming either a member of parliament or even better, by becoming the owner of a media channel, or at times both. And then there are serious conflict of interest in parliament. You have owners of aviation companies sitting on the standing committee of the Ministry of Civil Aviation. Mr. Vijay Mallya was a member of the Committee of Civil Aviation. You have people who are in the financial business sitting on the standing committee of finance. You have other people who are in the energy business sitting on the standing committee of the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. And so, therefore, there is a huge conflict of interest. People do not declare interest despite the fact that there is a declaration register which is at least available in the Council of States, if I'm properly informed, before they speak on a subject in which they have a personal interest. So at some point in time, the entire gamut of what has led to the irrelevance of our legislative institutions has to be revisited. And the centerpiece of that is either repeal of the 10th schedule or at least its modification, substantive modification, so that democracy returns to Parliament and to our assemblies. Once again, I would like to thank the All India Lawyers Association for inviting me and allowing me to put my thoughts and ideas before all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving the academic and good knowledge about this topic. And this topic is very dynamic and is very currently. So now may I request to Amrinder Kumar Singh to give the welcome address in respect of other guests. We have connected with the Sanjay Singh, MP Rajya Sabha, and we have connected with Vice Chancellor from the Bombay National Law University. Over to Amrinder Kumar Singh.
Good evening, everyone. I'm audible.
Yes, perfectly.
Yes, I am audible.
Yes.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. First and all, I would like to thank Binod Kumar Goyal ji, Chairman All India Lawyer Forum, Vikas Verma ji, Co-Chairman All India Lawyer Forum, and all members of All India Lawyer Forum. Why I am saying? Because last COVID time they have very tremendous job, very good job. A series of the webinars done, and I believe me, every topic of the All India Lawyer Forum is a very unique. Today topic is also very unique, to see the today scenario, what happened in the going on of the India, and Sri Manish Tiwari ji, member of the Parliament, now keynote speaker, give the some suggestions, some advice, and what is the so now Sanjay Singh ji, our the second speaker. I welcome Sanjay Singh ji, and I welcome also member who have joined through Facebook, through online link. Sanjay Singh ji, everybody know that the Sanjay Singh ji is the dynamic leader in the Aam Aadmi Party. He is the Rajya Sabha member from the Aam Aadmi Party. Sanjay sir, sir was born 1972, Sultanpur district, Uttar Pradesh. Singh, sir has a sir has a diploma in mining engineering from Odisha, school mining engineering in Konjhar. After he studied, sir was not keen on working a regular basis 9 to 5 p.m. He joined, and he is the formed the Azad Samaj Seva Samiti in Sultanpur in 1994. The first organization sir had the Azad Samaj Seva Samiti in 1994. After that, sir have only met a motive. Sanjay sir has only motive for the Azad Seva Samiti, for the help the poor people, organize the blood donation camp, health camp, fight for the people rights. After that, the entire thing, sir have moved to Delhi. Prior to joining the politics, sir have lead the various many movement, and it is only motive for welfare of the people. Sir, now Sanjay sir is the Rajya Sabha member, and he is the national spokesperson in Aam Aadmi Party. Uh, and today he is the keynote speaker for the anti-defection law. Our guest is also Professor Dilip Uke sir, Vice Chancellor Maharashtra National Law University Mumbai, and fourth is the Dr. Karuna Akshay Malviya, Principal MG Law College of Mumbai. We have the forum of the India Law Forum was established 2009 with the only aim of the India Law Forum is to help improve the administration of the justice, establish ethic courts, develop to the professional networks, quality profession development, and the promote the delivering of the justice. Uh, Co-chairman of the India Law Forums, he have done the very good job, and I wish and I pray to Vikaji, we've done the very good job. Thank you very much.
दो आप उसको लोग बजे थोड़े से करो लोगों निकल गए
Yes.
Thank you so much, Amrinder Singh ji, for giving the welcome speech in respect of our guest. So now may I request to Sanjay Singh, Member of Parliament Rajya Sabha, kindly sir give your address on the topic of anti-defection law in India. May over to Sanjay Singh, Member of Parliament Rajya Sabha.
इंडियन लॉयर्स फोरम के सभी जितने भी साथी हैं उनको सबको मेरा नमस्कार और मनीष तिवारी जी को नमस्कार। उन्होंने मैं थोड़ा लेट जुड़ा और काफ़ी अच्छी बातें उन्होंने कही और कई चीज़ें उन्होंने कई अच्छी जानकारियाँ दी। एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ क्यों लाया गया इस देश में, किन परिस्थितियों में लाया गया, इसके एक नहीं कई उदाहरण आपको मिल जाएंगे। चुनी हुई सरकारों को बर्खास्त करने की एक तानाशाही पूर्ण कार्रवाई अलग अलग सरकारों के समय में चली और जब ये देखा गया कि भाई खरीद फरोख्त और चुनी सरकारों को बर्खास्त करने का एक सिलसिला चल रहा है देश के अंदर, तो समय समय पर कानून लाए गए कि लोकतंत्र को खतरा न पहुंचाया जा सके, संविधान को खतरा न पहुंचाया जा सके, चुनी हुई सरकारों को 5 साल काम करने दिया जाए और ये खरीद फरोख्त की जो राजनीति है, हॉर्स ट्रेडिंग की जो राजनीति है, ये बंद हो इस देश के अंदर, जो हमारे लोकतंत्र के लिए काला धब्बा साबित हो रही थी। लेकिन समय समय पे जैसे जैसे बदलाव हुआ वैसे वैसे इसमें नए नए तरीके भी राजनीतिक दलों ने सोच लिए और निकाल लिए। मुझे याद है उत्तर प्रदेश में एक बार कल्याण सिंह जी की गवर्नमेंट बनी थी, उसमें 105 मंत्री बन गए थे और बहुजन समाज पार्टी को तोड़ के वो सरकार बनाई गई थी और उस बारे में हम लोग उस समय मजाक करते थे कि कल्याण सिंह जी की गवर्नमेंट में खेल कूद मंत्री नहीं है बल्कि खेल खेल के एक मंत्री है, कूद कूद के एक मंत्री है। इसी तरीके से अरुणाचल प्रदेश में होता था, मेघालय में होता था, सिक्किम में होता था, छोटे छोटे राज्यों में 30-30 मंत्री हो जाते थे। तो ये जो एक मंत्री पद का लालच देकर और खरीद फरोख्त करके सरकार बनाने का जो सिलसिला था, उसको रोकने के लिए एक प्रकार से ये एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ अलग अलग समय पे उसको और मजबूत किया गया। अब लेकिन एक एक करके अगर हम लोग बात करें, नियम बनाया गया कि साहब आपके मंत्रियों की संख्या 15% या 10% राज्यों के अनुपात के हिसाब से, इससे ज्यादा आपकी सरकार में मंत्री नहीं हो सकते। उसका दूसरा तरह का तरीका राजनीतिक दलों ने निकाल लिया कि साहब जो राज्य मंत्री का दर्जा देने की परंपरा है उसको और बढ़ा दिया, विधायकों को तोड़ के लेके आए, उसको किसी विभाग का अध्यक्ष बना दिया और राज्य मंत्री का दर्जा दे दिया। ये कार्रवाई हुई। उसके बाद दूसरा तरीका ये निकाल लिया कि आप हमारी पार्टी में शामिल हो जाइए, अगर आप इस्तीफा देंगे तो आपकी सदस्यता चली जाएगी, आपकी सदस्यता चली जाएगी तो हमारी सरकार है, हम आपको फिर से चुनाव लड़ा देंगे। और आप फिर से चुनाव जीत के आ जाइए और फिर आप विधायक बन जाइए, मंत्री बन जाइए। जो अभी नया प्रयोग हमने कर्नाटक में देखा और वही प्रयोग मध्य प्रदेश में देखा, ताजा उदाहरण है उसका। और उसी तरह की कोशिश महाराष्ट्र में भी की गई कि सुबह सुबह मुख्यमंत्री और उप मुख्यमंत्री की शपथ दिला दी गई। तो इस एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ का भी माखौल उड़ाने का एक प्रयास अभी भी इतने सारे परिवर्तन करने के बावजूद जारी है। और एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ को एक मजाक बनाने का काम अभी भी चल रहा है। उसका नया तरीका ये हो गया कि पार्टियां तोड़ लो, उसके विधायकों से इस्तीफा दिला दो, अपनी सरकार बना लो और सरकार बना के उपचुनाव करा के उनको जिता लो। ये भी कर्नाटक में और मध्य प्रदेश में इसका प्रयोग हो रहा है। कर्नाटक में हो चुका, मध्य प्रदेश में होने जा रहा है, उपचुनाव होगा वहां पे। इसका मुझे जो व्यक्तिगत तौर पे लगता है, और मनीष तिवारी जी भी उसके लिए लोकसभा में प्रयास कर सकते हैं, अगर हम लोग एक कानून इस देश में इस तरह का लाएं, सरकार इसके लिए अगर तैयार हो, हालांकि उम्मीद नहीं कर सकते आपसे, आपकी सरकार से, लेकिन अगर इस बात के लिए तैयार हो कि कोई भी व्यक्ति अगर एक सिंबल से चुनाव जीत के आता है, चाहे वो कांग्रेस के सिंबल से जीत के आए, चाहे वो आम आदमी पार्टी के सिंबल से जीत के आए या बीजेपी के सिंबल से जीत के आए, 5 साल तक वो किसी दूसरी पार्टी से चुनाव लड़ने का अधिकारी नहीं होगा। 5 साल तक उसके चुनाव लड़ने पर रोक लगनी चाहिए। तो ये जो विधायकों को तोड़ने की और सरकार बनाने की जो कार्रवाई चल रही है, इस पर रोक लगाई जा सकती है, क्योंकि तब विधायकों को ये लालच नहीं होगा कि हम जाके वहां मंत्री बन जाएंगे और फिर से हम चुनाव लड़ेंगे और फिर से विधायक बन जाएंगे। तो मुझे लगता है कि अभी जो वर्तमान परिस्थितियां हैं और एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ का जिस तरीके से माखौल उड़ाया जा रहा है, और वो आया राम और गया राम की कहानी जो हम लोग हरियाणा में सुनते थे, वो आया राम गया राम के जांच एजेंसियों का इस्तेमाल करके दबाव बना के सरकारों को गिराना और फिर मंत्री पद का लालच देना और फिर उपचुनाव में उनको जिता देना, इसको रोकने का एकमात्र तरीका मुझे लगता है कि इस देश में ऐसा कानून बनना चाहिए जिसमें एक सिंबल से अगर कोई आदमी विधायक बनता है तो 5 साल तक उसको दूसरे चुनाव लड़ने का अधिकार नहीं होना चाहिए। एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ इस देश में और मजबूत करने की, सख्त करने की जरूरत है। जो इस देश में सरकारों को बर्खास्त करने का इतिहास रहा है, सरकारों को तोड़ने का इतिहास रहा है, उस संदर्भ में एसआर बोमई के मामले में एक बहुत दलील दे के बार बार कई सरकारों को बचाने में मदद मिली। और उसमें साफ तौर नंबर राज्यपाल के घर में नहीं तय होगा। और यही हुआ था, रोमेश भंडारी जब उत्तर प्रदेश के राज्यपाल थे, उस समय एक सरकार को रातों रात शपथ दिला दी गई थी और बाद में उसमें हाईकोर्ट का आदेश आया था। तो मुझे याद है कि 2 मुख्यमंत्री बैठे थे, एक तरफ कल्याण सिंह जी, एक तरफ जगदम्बिका पाल जी, और वोटिंग हुई थी, उसमें फ्लोर ऑफ द हाउस पे वोटिंग हुई थी और उसमें फिर जगदम्बिका पाल जी के पास नंबर नहीं था और वो सरकार। आज जो कुछ भी घटनाक्रम पूरे देश में हो रहा है और भारतीय जनता पार्टी जिस तरह से लोकतंत्र का मजाक उड़ा रही है और जिस तरह से संविधान का मजाक उड़ा रही है, चुनी हुई सरकारों को बर्खास्त करवाना और उनको गिराने का जो सिलसिला चल रहा है, इसको रोकने के लिए एंटी डिफेक्शन लॉ, मैं नहीं कहता कि इसमें काम नहीं हुआ, समय समय पर इसको मजबूत किया गया, लेकिन अभी शायद उतना मजबूत नहीं है कि ये जो बीजेपी की कार्रवाई है इसको रोका जा सके। और इसलिए ओर से प्रयास भी करूंगा कि प्राइवेट मेंबर बिल इस बारे में लेकर आऊं। अगर एक सिंबल से कोई चुनाव जीत सांसद बनता है तो 5 साल उसको फिर दोबारा किसी सिंबल से चुनाव लड़ने की इजाजत नहीं होनी चाहिए। उस पर कानूनी रोक लगनी चाहिए। उसमें तमाम वीडियोस आते हैं, एविडेंस आते हैं, ऑडियो आते हैं, लेकिन उस पर कोई कार्रवाई नहीं होती, वो एक दिखावा मात्र होता है। उसकी टीवी में, मीडिया में 2 दिन 4 दिन चर्चा हो जाती है, फिर उस पर कोई कार्रवाई नहीं होती। उसके लिए भी कुछ सख्त कानून बनाने की जरूरत है, क्योंकि हमने देखा था कि येदियुरप्पा ने ये कहा था कि अगर उसमें हाई कोर्ट का भी हवाला उन्होंने दिया था और देश के गृह मंत्री का भी नाम उन्होंने लिया था और सरकार गिराने की वो बात कर रहे थे। हमने एक इस तरह का भी बयान कैलाश विजयवर्गीय का मध्य प्रदेश में देखा था कि जिस दिन हमारा केंद्रीय नेतृत्व कह देगा तो हम तो सरकार किसी भी समय मध्य प्रदेश की गिरा सकते हैं। यानी खुलेआम एक तरीके से चुनौती देना चुनी हुई सरकारों को बर्खास्त करने की या उनको गिराने की, तोड़ने की, ये अभी भी चल रही है। और ये इसलिए चल रही है कि एक सफलता इस काम में जो एक्सपर्ट माने जाते हैं अमित शाह जी, उनको जगह जगह सरकारें गिराने का अनुभव है और लेकिन बाकी जगहों पे वो सफल हुए। गोवा में नंबर कम होने के बावजूद इन्होंने सरकार बना ली। जो ज्यादा नंबर वाली पार्टी कांग्रेस थी वो सरकार नहीं बना पाई और 13 विधायक लेके उस सरकार बना ली सरकार। और मुझे लगता है कि ये जो 50% से ज्यादा सीट वाली एक बात है कि भाई अगर 400 की विधानसभा है तो आपको 201 203 विधायक होने चाहिए, 201 विधायक होने चाहिए, तभी आपकी सरकार बन सकती है। इस नियम के बारे में भी सोचने की जरूरत है। अगर कोई पार्टी चुनाव लड़ती है और किसी को बहुमत नहीं आता है, जो सबसे जिस पार्टी है वो सरकार बनाए, उसकी सरकार होनी चाहिए। अगर आप धन्यवाद।
Thank you, sir, for giving the very knowledgeable knowledge on this topic. Thank you so much, sir. So now may I proceed further, I think. Thank you so much. So now may I request Professor Dr. Dilip Uke, Vice Chancellor, Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai. So before inviting the sir, so I would like to mention some achievements. Sir has, I mentioned about the awards and recognitions. 2003, fellowship was awarded by the UGC New Delhi to visit France. In year 2003, invited to deliver keynote address at the international conference held on human rights at Kathmandu, Nepal. 2007, awarded Shiksha Ratan Puruskar by Indian International Friendship Society, New Delhi. In 2009, invited to present paper in an international conference held on human rights at New South Wales University, Sydney, Australia. In 2009, awarded Best Citizen of India Award by Citizen Group of Publication, New Delhi. In year 2009, appointed Visiting Research Fellow by New South Wales University, Sydney, Australia for 3 years. In 2009 also, invited to be a guest speaker, present a paper in international conference jointly organized by Vienna University, Australia and City University, Hong Kong on exclusion from the constitutional law. Shortlisted and interviewed for the post of Vice Chancellor, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, Marava University, Aurangabad by Governor of Maharashtra, 30th December 2010. Shortlisted and interviewed for the post of Vice Chancellor, SP Pune University by Governor of Maharashtra on 15th May 2012. Best Academician Award conferred by Indian National Bar Association, New Delhi on 26 November 2019. So now may I request to Professor Dr. Dilip Uke kindly deliver your lecture on the anti-defection law. So over to Dr. Dilip, sir.
Thank you, sir. My esteemed panelist, respected Shri Manishji Tiwari, Honorable Member of Parliament and Former Minister, Government of India. The other speaker, Shri Sanjay Singh Ji, the Member of Parliament. All the office bearers of All India Lawyers Forum. I really compliment and congratulate them for taking such initiatives in this scenario of a pandemic to enlighten the audience and giving me an opportunity to share few thoughts on the topic of anti-defection law. Rather, when I was approached, having heard that Shri Manishji Tiwari would be a keynote speaker, my only intention was to listen to him and his first-hand experience as a minister and member of parliament, as well as the Supreme Court lawyer as such. And I'm really glad that he has thrown the lights upon the different aspects of the anti-defection law, sharing with his own personal experiences in the parliament as such. Dear friends, as Tiwari ji has pointed out that this 10th schedule, which was introduced by the then Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Rajiv Ji Gandhi, because the Congress party had a 3/4 majority. I remember that 413 members of parliament or the Lok Sabha members. And of course, the disease of defections, which was rooted deeply in the Indian politics, and particularly the nomenclature which has been used, Ayaram, Gayaram, three Lals which have had ruled Haryana politics, Bhajan Lal, Bansi Lal, and Sri Devilal ji. And of course, the such deadly disease of defections which has prevailed everywhere in the country. As the preamble of the Indian Constitution contains the notion of democracy, we the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into sovereign socialist democratic republic. That notion of democracy which we know as the government for the people, of the people, and by the people. People herein, rather, it was twisted. The spellings were rather changed. Instead of for, F-O-R, it was F-A-R. It was O-double-F, of the people, and B-Y-E, by the people as. However, I recall that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the chairman of the drafting committee, who did not agree with this definition, and he has defined democracy in a different way. And according to him, the democracy is nothing but the form and method of the government by which the revolutionary changes in social and economic lives of the people could be brought without any bloodshed. That was rather the object of the notion of democracy, concept of democracy. We all of us are aware that to what extent the social and economic changes have been brought in the lives of the people by way of the democratic governance. And that's what herein the political morality and political choices are to be governed essentially by the notion of democracy as envisioned by the constitution framers and particularly the chairman of the drafting committee. I reiterate what I have said, that political morality and political choices, they have to be governed by the notion of, by the concept of democracy. It is the mechanism to organize the lives of the people in the nation, in the country as, and thereby one government in the sense either at the central level or at the state level is accountable, responsible to the people of that state, to the people of the country. When people elect their representative, as it is a representative democracy, they elect the representative, member of parliament or member of legislative assembly, because of the philosophy, because of the ideology, because of the assurances, promises provided in the political manifesto, election manifesto us. And how far it would be moral, ethical, legal, constitutional, that having got elected, then because of the lure and because of the greed to be a minister and so on and so forth, one could change his or her political ideology overnight. Advocate Tiwari ji has pointed out, IRM. Rather, till now we are under impression it is just a nomenclature, but it was actually the person who has changed the affinity in a day 8 times. That is really horrible as such. In view of this, keeping in mind to cleanse the politics of defection, cleanse the politics of IRM Gairam, really kudos to Rajiv Ji Gandhi that he has introduced this anti-defection law in the form of 10th schedule in the year 1985, which commenced, the act came into force, that anti-defection act came into force on the 1st March of 1985. The 10th schedule, which was inserted into the Indian Constitution by way of 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act in 1985, provides that the paras which are there, paragraphs which are there, para 2, there are three ways that when member either of the parliament or of the legislature could be disqualified. Firstly, when he or she gives up voluntarily the membership of the political party on which he or she got elected, on which he or she was set up as a candidate in the election and got elected. Secondly, when he or she, a member of the legislative party, rather the nomenclature which is used is the legislative party, a member of the legislative party of a particular political party either remains absent, abstains from voting, or votes contrary to the direction of the political party. That is another one. And the third one is that he acts against the direction of the legislative party, in a sense the political party. These are the three instances. However, the proviso is that if suppose he obtains the prior permission for his absent, or his absent has been condoned, or his act or action has been condoned within 15 days from the date of voting by that legislative party, by that political party, then the issue of disqualification or action of disqualification he would not attract to. Accordingly, Article 105 as well as Article 191, they have been amended when 10th schedule was inserted. This act and this 10th schedule and provisions under the 10th schedule, they are also applicable to the independent candidate. If the candidate has got elected independently, if joins any other political party after the election, still the provision of Anti-Defection Act is applicable. Similarly, it is also applicable to the nominated member. Any nominated member, if joins any other political party after the expiry of 6 months, if he or she joins such a nominated member before the expiry of 6 months, then provision is not attracted. Provision of disqualification is not attracted. But if he joins after the expiry of 6 months after the nomination and taking oath as a member of the House respective, then the provision of disqualification, Anti-Defection Act would be applicable. That is what the para 2 is all about. Para 3 of the 10th schedule was that, as Manish ji had pointed out, whenever the 1/3 member of one political party, a legislative party of a political party, splits from the original political party, as it is called as original political party, and forms the separate group, separate entity, but requisite number was, I am using the word was, 1/3 member of the total strength of that political party, then it was not to be attracted. But if it was to be less than 1/3, then yes, the anti-defection law was applicable to. However, there were several such instances even thereafter, after 1985, wherein such controversies arose and rather cases led and reached to the Supreme Court. To overcome this difficulty and hurdle and strengthen the Anti-Defection Act, 91st Amendment Act was introduced, by which in the year 2003, by which para 3, which provided the splinter group a separate entity as a group in the House, respectively either in the Parliament or Legislative Assembly, was deleted. Now there is no para 3, and now the defection is not permissible, possible by way of a split since 2003 after the 91st Constitutional Amendment Act. Whereas in para 4, when two-third members of the legislative party of a political party decides to merge with the other political party or forms any other political party, then the anti-defection law is not applicable. Of course, there were also the controversies about it as such. However, if it is less than that, then it would be applicable. Para 5 deals with the membership, if at all, to be given by the chairman or the deputy chairman or the speaker or the deputy speaker who belong to the political party. If after becoming the speaker or the deputy speaker, suppose such authority gives up the membership of political party, then the Anti-Defection Act would not be applicable. Para 2 clause 1 would not be applicable in such scenario, in such case. The para 6 of the 10th schedule deals with that wherever the issue of defection, that issue has to be referred for the decision to the speaker or the chairman as the case may be. That is the para 6. And para 7, that is the bar for the courts. There is any decision taken by the speaker or the chairman shall be final. That's what para 6 says. And subsequently in para 7, the jurisdiction of the court has been barred. The judicial review has been excluded by para 7, and para 8 is about the rule making. That is not much of the concern here as such. However, when the act was challenged, Anti-Defection Act was challenged in Kyoto Holhan versus Jachillu, a landmark judgment was delivered by the Supreme Court of India, wherein the para 7, which dealt with the exclusive authority, which gave an exclusive absolute power to the speaker or the chairman as the case may be, to decide the disqualification of the members, that was declared as unconstitutional, invalid by the Supreme Court. The issue therein in Kyoto Holhan was that involved that whether the whole, because it was a challenge to the whole Anti-Defection Act, whole 10th schedule. So para 7 was declared as unconstitutional by the unanimous decision of the Supreme Court. However, the other issue was that whether para 7 shall be separated, segregated from the main whole 10th schedule, and remaining part shall be retained as valid as constitutional. In other words, all of us are mostly lawyers. We know whether the doctrine of severability would be applicable even to the constitutional amendments. Rather, doctrine of severability is otherwise and was otherwise applicable to the ordinary legislative legislations as such. That was an issue wherein majority, the 3 judges of the majority, because it was a 5 judges bench, 3 versus 2, held that para 7 could be separated, segregated from the 10th schedule, and remaining 10th schedule, remaining part could be declared as valid, could remain as valid. Why it was declared invalid? Why it was declared unconstitutional? Because according to the court, according to the Supreme Court, that rather the whole bench, 5 judges bench, said that the ratification which was required by the 50% of the states, because there are 3 modes of the amendments of the Constitution, by simple majority, 2/3 majority, and 2/3 majority plus consent of 50% of the state, that was not complied with. That was one. And secondly, which barred the jurisdiction of the court, a judicial review was excluded. And when judicial review was excluded, which warranted the ratification by the 50% of the state, on that ground, the para 7 was declared as unconstitutional, which was separated from the remaining act of the Anti-Defection Act, and remaining part was declared as valid as such. And that's what rather Kyoto Holhan. Now in the present scenario, there is no such para 3 which dealt with split and recognizing the split, and there is no such para 7. Remaining 10th schedule is intact as such. As the politicians and as the member of parliament, Advocate Tiwari ji, as well as Sri Sanjay Singh ji, they gave the valuable suggestions. Of course, it was seen, like even P.V. Narasimha Rao versus CBI, the Jharkhand Mukti Morcha's case. There were several such decisions delivered by the Supreme Court. This is not the occasion because time also doesn't permit, time constraint is there. There are valuable suggestions provided by Tiwari Saab and Sanjay Singh Saab, which are to be taken into account. Why not? Once the person get elected on a symbol of a political party, believing the ideology, philosophy of that particular political party, or even as an independent, he or she shall be barred to contest the election for the period of 5 years. Of course, there are various such suggestions would be put forth as how to strengthen the democracy, how the mandate of the people, faith of the people, which was reposed at the time of election, could not be cheated in, people could not be ditched as such, as well as the political party shall not be ditched as such by the elected members of the houses as. So I really commend the efforts and initiatives taken by our two panelists, the member of parliaments, and we hope that and we wish that something would be done by way of private member bills and which would become the reality in near future as such. With this, I thank once again Indian All India Lawyers Forum and the organizers for organizing this valuable webinar on the most relevant topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for giving the very deep knowledge about this topic, and you pointed out all the relevant judgments of the Supreme Court on this issue. And no doubt, sir, nowadays it has become very burning topic. And so I would like to mention some information about this session, that Mahatma Gandhi MGM Law College, Mumbai is session in collaboration with conducted, and the media partner is the SSC Online and latestlaw.com. So now may I request to Dr. Karuna kindly deliver your thanks speech in respect of our guest. Over to Dr. Karuna, Principal, MGM Law College, Mumbai.
Sure, sir. With due respect to the dignitaries, on behalf of MGM Law College and All India Lawyers Forum, I extend our deepest gratitude to all the keynote speakers of today's event. Honorable Shri Manish Tiwari ji, Member of Parliament and Supreme Court Advocate, Shri Sanjay Singh ji, Member of Parliament, and Dr. Dilip Uke ji, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai. Respected sirs, your expertise in delivering the legal principles is highly appreciated. I extend a special note for the wonderful interpretation of the concept of today's concept, and it was really worth to remember Dr. B.R. Ambedkar ji with respect to the analysis of this concept of today's session and the Constitution. We extend our sincere gratitude to all the keynote speakers for accepting our invitation in such a short notice period and giving valuable information and motivating all the participants. We are really thankful for your presence and motivation, sir. We extend our thanks to all the participants and congratulate them for participating in this webinar. I also personally thank all the principals under University of Mumbai for encouraging the participation of their students in this event. I especially thank our media partners latestlaw.com and SSC Online. I thank All India Lawyer Forum for their collaborative work with MGM Law College. I hereby extend special thanks to the organizers of this webinar, the National Executive Chairman, Mr. Vinod Kumar Goyal ji, the National Executive Co-Chairman, Mr. Vikas Verma ji, our President, Abhinav Singh ji, National Coordinator, Mr. Subir Sindhu, Vice President, Rashmi Bansal, Secretary, Vikrant Dharma and Naveen Gupta, Treasurer, Shri Balraj Puri, National IT Head, Mr. Manvinder Sharma, Foreign Division Coordinator, Ms. Pragya Parijat Singh, Academic Division Coordinator, Professor Dr. Mohit Sharma ji. I extend thanks to all the state coordinators and presidents. For Delhi State, Mr. Sandeep Garg, For Punjab, Mr. Bikramjit Singh Jatana. For Chandigarh, Mr. Amardeep Singh Manse. For Haryana, Mr. Udit Mendiratta. For Jharkhand, Mr. Dipesh Kumar Nirala. For UP, Mr. Sagar Sharma. For MP, Mr. Dharmendra Kumar Malviya. For Andhra Pradesh, Mr. Anil Kumar Jaldi. For Gujarat, Mr. Bhagyodaya Mishra. For Jammu and Kashmir, Mr. Furqan Sofi. For Assam, Ms. Biswajit Hazarika. For West Bengal, Ms. Jahan Ara Kulsum and Suvjit Ghosh Dastidar. For Odisha, Mr. Jayant Kumar Padi. For Maharashtra, Mr. Durgesh Gupta. For Rajasthan, Ms. Swati. And for Tamil Nadu, Mr. Chandrasekhar. I also mention special thanks to all our student coordinator wings. And last but not the least, I extend my special thanks to the management of MGM Law College for allowing us a collaboration with All India Lawyers Forum and giving a platform to our students to be a part of such a wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you.